Hello everyone, it's Dom here from Esports News UK, back with another interview stream, and I've got a really special guest today. It's DonJake. DonJake, I mean, how to introduce you? That you do so much. I've got here caster, org owner, content creator, DJ and entrepreneur.
DJ, entrepreneur, you know, obviously the first man to get Challenger on the International Space Station as well. There's really not much I haven't done at this point, to be honest. White van owner, you know, can fix your sink and whatnot, you know, trained electrician. Not really, but yeah, quite a few things.
Brilliant. So it's a case of like, what can't you do?
Yeah, well, what can't I do? Draw circles and make my bed on a regular basis.
It's a pleasure to be talking to you, DonJake. Honestly, I feel like I'm going to start off with your background because I feel personally, you know, I'm one of the older guys in the UK League of Legends scene now, and I guess some of the newer, more hip, younger people like yourself, it's, you know, when I think of UK League of Legends, I feel like some of the older lot, like, you know, we'll come on to this, you've got Rifty, a real veteran player on your team, Ruddy Esports. But I'd love to know about your background because I've only started to see you and be aware of you. I think you did stuff with X7. You know, I write a lot about NLC, UKLC, and not so much other tournaments. As I understand it, you've done other tournaments, you know, you've cast other tournaments and things. Tell us about
actually no, strangely enough, LFL that I do, which I'm sure we'll get onto, is actually pretty much my first outing in terms of a major broadcast.
Right.
I didn't really cast a lot of things before that. I basically kind of sporadically casted a few different things, kind of in the same ilk that a lot of the people that are trying to make it through to the NLC like kind of ecosystem. So like, you know, shout out to people like Middlecott and J-Real that are still like really grinding to like make their way through that, who like I'm sure will continue to do so. You know, in some ways I feel like a major imposter syndrome that I've somehow managed to get above them. Do you know what I mean? It's just the case sometimes you get in when you get in, right? But I did EU Masters play-ins with Goldborg. Goldborg was the one who brought me in on that. I basically did that, and then I really smashed it. I think impressed a few people, then got this opportunity. Been doing pretty well so far. I think I've still got a lot of major things to improve on, but like generally speaking, I've always felt like my fundamentals for casting are like good. You know, like, it sounds dumb, but like, loud, booming voice, like pretty expansive vocabulary. You can like do a lot with that, right? It's just more about like working on the technicalities for me, which, obviously working with Gulborg, I'm so lucky to be able to do. Like, he's my like mentor. He's like helped me from EU Masters, does VOD reviews with me. Like, I have a very good working relationship with him in the sense of like, just always able to improve. But in terms of my background, before that, I didn't really cast anything. I just kind of casted for fun. And then
Right.
I've kind of existed. The way I really spawned into the scene, actually, because I was just a complete Twitter shit poster for years and just like in the community and whatnot, EU West. It's like what wasn't really collated or connected to the UK scene in general. Officer Naughty did a thing called the UK Hunger Games
I remember
ages
that.
and ages ago, and I kind of burst. God, I'm going to sound like Mika Richards right now. I say I burst onto the scene, but I didn't really. But there's a clip if you remember watching that. There's basically I got drafted into like the international district 13. I think I was on a team with, I forget who, Cloudy, who's Orcs' partner, and then I was with also, God, it's really bad that I don't remember because I'm almost certain that I still speak to the person that I was with to this day. But yeah, we like made a video, and there's a very like good clip of me like I get interviewed because the way they're running it is Hunger Games. I get interviewed, and like we're talking about the other candidates, and I just start like shouting into the mic that like the person from like District 1, which is London, isn't even really from London. They're from like Croydon or something. It's like basically outside of London at that point. And like I think that's when like people got like semi introduced to me, and then from that like people like there was a major server that was set up to like play Among Us because this was like during the like dawn and like advent of Among Us being played as like a major game. So I got invited to a server that was like it was people like Jamada, Harry, that I now is like my business partner at Ruddy, actually, strangely enough. Strange how these things are not happening, right? And then beyond that it was like loads of UK people like that were connected to like casting and whatnot. Orcs is how I met Orcs for the first time as
Mm.
well. And just like from that, Officer Naughty as well obviously was there. Lorks was there as well. We used to bully Lorks so much.
Well, shout out
Lorks
to
is like
Lux. It's a big
Lorks is like
supporter
the
of Esports News UK.
biggest victim of all time in Among Us, like literally, like quite possibly. Like the way that Among Us works sometimes as well is like the odds are so rigged in terms of like getting imposter sometimes. So like sometimes you'd be waiting like 4 hours to get an imposter game because we play for like 8 hours at once. We were so addicted to it at some point. And like just because of the nature of like how Orcs' personality, not Lorks' personality is, God, it was basically he'd get it and then like everyone would suss him out immediately and he'd just be done.
Yeah.
Like you've been waiting for 4 hours and you're just done in 2 minutes because like I don't know. He's like the CEO. Lorks would like call like these meetings where he'd be like, "Yeah, guys, like logistically, I've been surmounting some evidence around the third quadrant," and we'd just like, "Shut up, Lorks," and just vote him
You're the
out, and like he'd
imposter.
just be gone. He'd just be gone. Like you're just talking like
He
you
can't
sound way
lie.
too. No, he's impossible because I don't know. Well, yeah. But anyway, that's how I got introduced to a lot of like UK people, and then from that point onwards, like I've obviously continued my kind of shit posting streak, but then as time has gone on I've been like more invested in like actually portraying myself in a beneficial way.
Yeah.
So from that point onwards, like I've been attached to like multiple orgs, like supposedly I'm doing content, but like as I think we'll get into on an interview is every org that I was attached to. So I was initially doing work with an org that I won't mention because it's not publicly reported in any way,
Okay.
but I was a manager for an org. Basically, there's an org that exists in NLC whereby I was a manager there, but I was meant to be doing content, but I got roped into doing managerial work, and then I got roped into doing more unpaid managerial work, all by the while essentially being promised that I would eventually, be doing like content in studio
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And then I worked at X7, and I think I publicly spoken it on my stream that I was very unhappy with my working relationship with X7. I won't get into like the actual logistics behind some of the stuff that was purported to me in my working relationship with them,
Mm.
but let's just say plain staking facts, and I think this is like reported. You could talk to Kyra about this as well because he also did some work with them. None of my stuff with them was ever on contract, and then I was doing videos for them uh, for free, I guess you would say. Like yeah, it's somewhat dubious. And the videos I ended up I had like a whole content plan that I was meant to be doing for them, and it never ended up like coming into fruition, I guess.
Oh, that's a
And a
shame.
lot of that comes to, yeah, it's a real shame because strangely enough, so like I'm like a relatively arrogant person, like in the sense of like, I kind of operate under like a stupor bravado or whatever. Like I feel like it's helpful for creators, like just to believe you have to believe you're the shit sometimes. You know what I mean? Like obviously that comes with the added layer of the fact that I'm also a deeply insecure person that like, dreads their existence a lot of the time and like, has severe doubts about their ability to do like most things. But like also like it propels me in a way. Like I exist in like very much a chaotic corpus, so to speak, in the
Mm,
sense that like I'm constantly modulated by my own like bipolar emotions in two different directions. So like, um, I've gone on a massive caveat there to basically explain to you like the content plan I had or idea for X7 in the sense of what I would producing for them was like, a lot of LEC orgs would have like bitten my arm off for it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
mm.
very good stuff. And I feel like a lot of people are like having to see that now with Ruddy and some of the stuff that we're doing. They're like, wow, this is really creative and like actually doesn't take any effort or money. Like, and it's just like, it sounds bad to like almost suggest that I'm motivated by revenge, but like a lot of my motivation in doing a lot of Ruddy stuff is to like look at any of the orgs who have like offered me work and like not rewarded me for it and just
I
go, I
see.
could have done this for you and I wouldn't have wanted anything in return. Do you know what I mean? Like I would have wanted just like money, like monetary, like not any sort of money in response. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm. I was going to ask actually, but just before I ask a question, hello to everyone in the chat. Archiraf says two legends on my screen. Harry the King.
absolutely.
There's lots of people in the chat. No name. Thanks for tuning in. If you have questions for DonJake, please feel free to ask them. I should have said that at the start of this stream. I do like these streams to be interactive and so on. And my style is very chatty. Um, that's interesting. You've opened up there, and something you've touched on there, DonJake, about content creators. I've met KSI. I think it was at the first
Yeah.
or second esports
I've met
awards.
KSI as well,
Oh, have
actually, when
you?
I
I will
was,
have to exchange. I'll tell you my story first, and I'd love to hear
okay.
your
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how mellow and normal he was. He seemed. I was thinking, is this KSI? He's like, yeah, man, yeah, nice to meet you. Like, he's very quiet, and that's when I
Yeah.
realised, and he's publicly said this. He has a character on
No,
stream. He gets
100%.
in the zone, and I'm guessing that might be similar for you.
So I have a different thing whereby a lot of people when they actually encounter me, and I feel like a lot of people when they actually like, so like I do have a persona very much like, and the character I play is like very braggadocious, very like arrogant, very like up in your face, like telling you what I think. And like that is a character. It is me to an extent, but it's much like any persona. It's like it's an accentuated version of
Yeah.
yourself, right? But like when people watch me stream or like have serious conversations, they realize, oh, there's actually a little bit more like substance to this person. Like, do you know what I mean? Like in the sense that like I don't know. I would say that I'm like pretty good at communicating with people in general. Do you know what I mean? And like expressing how I feel about a range of different topics.
Mm.
So I feel like there's a weird moment that people have when they like clue into like who I am as a person. When they're like, oh, this guy isn't like a bumbling jester or whatever. He actually like he knows what he's doing. And when people realize, they realize there's actually a lot of like calculation behind a lot of like the things that I do.
Mm.
It's not just like by chance that like I land on quite a few things. You know what I mean?
Well, you're coming across a very good natural communicator, Don Jake. So thanks for opening up to me about how you feel and so on. What's your KSI story then? I'm curious. I know he's not
I met
esports, but
KSI. I've met KSI twice actually.
have
Strangely
you?
enough, I used to. So I'm 22 years old. Some people think I'm older. Some people think I'm younger. Appearance because I'm younger. They think I'm older because of appearance, but then because of my silly nature, sometimes they think I'm younger. But I met KSI when I was maybe 12, 13, because I used to be really into Call of Duty actually. Before
Right.
ever played League of Legends, massively into Call of Duty. I used to go to loads of LANs. I went to like EGLs, Gfinities when they started being in London, when they started being a thing in like 2012, 2013. I've got a picture actually that I could maybe show production and we put it on at some point. I've got a picture of me with Nade Shot pre 100 Thieves, like as a 13-year-old,
Wow.
just like meeting him. And I met KSI at one of those events. I actually made KSI laugh as a 13-year-old, which is quite funny because
Nice.
I was with my younger brother. So my younger brother Garth, who doesn't really do anything, but he plays League. He's quite supportive of everything I do. Quite close with him. He's 3 years younger than me, so I would have been 13, 12. He would have been 9, 10. Um, I got an autograph from my little brother because my little brother's such a massive fan. I was quite in. I liked KSI. I watched like the Road to Division 1, but this is like sort of at the end of that sort of time. So I sort of moved off that train now. Still
Yeah.
massively respectful for everything he's done for like the scene and whatnot. But I got an autograph from him from my brother, and I just said to him, "Thanks, mate. That's £100 on eBay." And he just like burst out laughing. He found it quite funny.
Yeah.
Like, and that's like there's yeah, well, it was yeah, I managed to make him laugh, and then I met him again at like Gfinity, but I didn't really talk to him after that.
Okay, no problem. We've got a question here in the chat. This is from No Name. Says, How did you expand your vocabulary so much? Reading or
So I don't know. I think a lot. I think a few people know this about me. Like if you've ever watched my stream at length during a period of time, like a lot of like viewers have viewed me over quite a period of time. I actually have quite like an academic background,
oh
surprisingly.
right.
I feel like people are like very surprised when I say that because I just like I don't know. Like I say, there's a weird thing that people experience when they realize that oh, this guy's actually not completely stupid. I without getting very specifically into my education, I don't want people to. I don't. First of all, I don't want people to assume from that I'm like privately educated or not. I went to a state school in East London. Like I'm very like salt of the earth, free for a pair, straight from the ground. Like that's kind of my upbringing. But like I went to like a quite. So the school I went to in Hackney is like a very good, but like it was basically repurposed as it was the first example I believe in of academy. If you know about the academy structure in
Yeah.
the UK, so the idea of like bringing in like private school ideals to like actual schools. So it was repurposed from like the Hackney Free School, I think is what it was called initially, which is like the worst school in the country or something.
Oh
So
gosh.
the school I went to basically had like a major push to like getting kids into like Oxbridge and places like this. So, I was going to like Oxford summer schools when I was like 14, 15. Like
Right.
I actually won one of my crowning achievements as an academic before everything went to shit essentially, which we can get onto because I had a major like depressive episode when I was 18, which meant that I didn't actually end up going to higher education. But I actually won. If you remember, the guy who was against Sadiq Khan in the London mayoral election is a guy called Zach Goldsmith, the Tory.
Okay.
Um, not to ascribe any political affiliations on this stream, but screw the Tories and whatnot. But anyway, um, his family actually have a prize that is awarded at the Oxford Summer School called the Goldsmith Scholarship Prize, which I think I was one of three people to win in that
Oh
inaugural
wow.
year. So yeah, I won that for a little philosophy paper I did on epistemological logic, little
Wow.
philosophy thing. So yeah, I didn't end up. I basically ended up being part of the kind of grooming process for going to like, Oxford and stuff like that. So like, yeah, I've read like a lot of books like growing up. Not to sound like a prat about it, but that's generally speaking my kind of background in education and whatnot.
I think reading is so important, and it's partly why
Really important,
I'm
yeah.
focused on doing content. I know people say, "Oh, esports Dom, do more news, do more videos, and this and that." Yes, I do try and do some videos, but I like core writing, and I like encouraging people to read because you can learn a lot. You can only get so much from YouTube videos. There's something about words that you can. It does expand your vocabulary when you're
Yeah,
reading the
what's
words.
my general attitude now, and it's really it's bad because the last 3 years I've been very much succumbed to the kind of it's a real problem for a lot of people, and we're getting like away from like esports in general. This is a real problem with like the digital age that like you want to talk about the kind of rising kind of influx of people with like ADD and like attention deficit disorders. A lot of that owes to like the society that we live in. You're like your brain is in a constant state of like fight or flight, like with all the flashing lights, cars going, like your phone and whatnot. Like your brain isn't regulated in a regular way to where you actually intake information in like a correct and
Mm,
nurturing way. For me, I realized like I'm not preaching it. Bro, I'm going to start sounding like Joe Rogan in a second, like disconnect from society, like go and eat like elk meat. That's not what I'm purporting at all. But basically, I realized a little while ago something for me that really makes my life easier is I just try and read like an hour a day, and like yeah, because essentially I realized a long time ago like your brain has a diet the same way that your body does, and essentially the information you intake, because I spent like a long time, about 2 years, where like my majority of like what I would watch on YouTube was just like really bad. Like I would just watch like synapse and like just like really flashy like league stuff, or like very like low effort intake. And
mm,
then recently I've tried to just like watch films and like watch documentaries and like watch actual useful stuff. And like, I'm not perfect. Like I still watch like like Bayfeng smurfing in platinum videos when I'm like bored or whatever. Like that's interesting as hell. But like yeah, like having your brain on like a diet is like really important. So I try and like make sure that I still read, because I obviously have like a
yeah.
pretty good wealth of like what I've read. Like I've read all the not all of them, but I've read like I grew up reading like the classics and whatnot, and like literature. I try like I'm like pretty well read in like philosophy, art, history, literature, whatnot. It's just about expanding upon it, right? Like, it's never too late to start as well. Like I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, like I'm 22 and I haven't read anything. Like literally, like Regan will tell you. I don't know if Regan's watching right now, but like I was talking to Regan about a book by Dostoevsky. It was like great, Brothers Karamazov. I was like making a joke to him about that the other day.
Mm.
He's went and bought it and he's actually reading it at the moment. So like I'm really happy for him.
It's
Like, it's
great. Do you know, I should
being like a
read
good
more.
inspiration on my boys.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'm glad we're having this chat. I mean, I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but even me, I've gone through, I'm mid-30s now. There's a lot of books on my to-read list, old
Yeah,
classics and things. I only started getting into George Orwell last year. And I was
yeah,
like,
no, it's great.
holy hell, why has it taken me so long? Like, this stuff is amazing and has influenced so much out there. I read
Yeah,
1984 and I was like, this has influenced so many films and things
yeah.
I've seen. This is amazing. Yeah, so I do
Well,
recommend.
everything influences everything, and like I had like so for me, like we get even like outside of esports, like generally speaking, what I want to do in my life is like I'm a creative type. Like I want to make. So basically, my plan is very much like I'm in esports right now for like a couple like for the foreseeable future. Obviously, I want to build Ruddy into something great, and I want to be tapped into it. I'm not going to be leaving anytime soon, but like my ultimate goal in life is to make films. And like a major moment of anagnoresis or realization for me in my life came to me. I read a book called Freakonomics, which is like an economic book. I think it's Stephen J. Levitt and something Dubner, but basically they did a series of studies that was essentially, I think it's like published in like 2011 or whatever,
Mm.
and it's basically stuff like without getting like too crude or whatever, but like basically it's like stuff like how there is market similarities between property developers and like the Ku Klux Klan, or
Oh
like
gosh.
how like drug dealers in the US embody similar market practices as like major Wall Street companies. And
That
like it's
doesn't
basically a
surprise
way
me.
of like through humanities, like, and they did this really interesting study about like nominative determinism in like naming. So like they did a study with like one kid was called winner and one kid was called loser, and then they tracked like how their lives ended up going. And I was reading it and I was like, I've never liked maths and I've never liked economics, but like, I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, this is actually like a way of like connecting like different subjects together. And then from that point onwards, I was like, why am I just reading literature? Why don't I just like try and intake everything from everywhere? Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
really
it's.
important.
I find this stuff fascinating. I don't know if you know Kairos Media. They're a UK-based agency. They've worked with, like, I think it's KFC. They did the KFC console announcement thing,
Yeah,
right? Which doesn't even exist, but they've got millions and however tens of millions of impressions. And they work with brands and they help reach influencers and reach the gaming market. And one of the founders, or the co-founders, oh gosh, I think it was Matt. His surname's eluded me now. He said, he learned a lot of his stuff from RuneScape back in the day,
yeah,
buying and selling. Like the auction house in World of Warcraft. You can learn
yeah. It's crazy.
demand, all that stuff from games. I love that. I know we're going on a tangent out of
Well, bro,
esports here.
like to be honest, a lot of like orgs, and like I won't get into specifics because I feel like I would be airing out too many people's business. But like you look at a lot of like, I won't name any names once again, but like if you track down the business practices of a lot of these people, like it's like track it down. A lot of them are owned by like or like funded by like crypto kind of stuff, and then you go back before that. Where do they get their money from? God, maybe I shouldn't mention this, but like, let's just say a few people like in League in general, like, obviously, if you look at League as an economic model and you're outside of the fringe of Riot sponsored things, there are X amount of things that you would do to make money within that system that are like slightly illegitimate and can be majorly made money. And I won't say more beyond that, but you can insinuate from what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I think I
And
know
like,
what you're
even beyond
saying.
that is like, that's an extrapolation of like being in school and buying like multi packs of Mars bars and selling them for a
Mm,
pound each. You know what I mean? And making a profit on that. There is a natural progression that exists within the space in terms of like
mm.
business. So yeah, it's interesting you say that. Like,
Well, I've heard of, I'm not naming names either. I had rumors and things a while back, and I couldn't really get concrete information, but I've heard of things UK scene people, being involved in boosting, account sharing, all kinds of stuff, and making money that way. But again, no hard proof, so I'm not going to name names. But I have seen. I
no,
did a
I'm not.
feature.
I'm not even saying that in a way of like, oh, let's elucidate and shine light on that
Mm,
because that's your job. But but essentially, it's interesting to me more so that just yeah, like you're saying, those same economic models have natural progression in a certain way, and they kind of can build up to certain different things.
yeah.
It's interesting. We are all like with a lot of like influx of like money, and this is another conversation we can have. There are so many UK orgs like X7, Resolve, for example. There are just like very young men who are suddenly just have a load of money and are just told to go and play with it. And like, how does that end up going? Like the Resolve model is ultimately like, I don't know how they're doing in other titles, but the Resolve League of Legends model is ultimately a failure, and that comes from a lot of people like being given money and just like going away and playing with it. Do you know what I mean? And it's like a lot of other orgs like Diabolus back in the day. Like I'm really showing my UK scene knowledge there, but like
Yes.
like Phelan, like Monster Rugby Gaming. I know they're still around, but like their initial inception, like there's so much like there's hypertrophied money within League of Legends because of like the income basis of it and where it can come from.
And it's so top heavy, League of
Yeah,
Legends, right? You're
exactly,
getting people with
exactly.
money coming in at these lower tiers, and it's very hard to get to that top level. Look at Carmine Corp. What else do they have to do to get into the LEC? Oh, they've got to wait for Riot to add a slot. Then they've got to have the investment money and get the right application in. XL surprised kind of everyone when they managed to get in the LEC early doors, but they had a
Yeah,
good salesperson or good gift of the gab in Kieran, and they had the investment money, and they managed to get in. It was a
yeah,
team effort,
100%.
of course, with their
Yeah, no, of
application. But
course.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry. Do you want to say anything on that,
No,
Don
no, no.
Jake,
Carry
before we
on.
move on?
We'll go to the next
Yeah,
topic because I feel like
we've got another question here. I will just say before I move on, East London. That's where
yeah.
I'm from. I was born in
Where are you
Newham,
from? Newham.
and
So I grew up in Homerton, Hackney. I
right,
live somewhere
okay,
else now, but first 19 years of my life, Hackney, born and bred, East London.
lovely.
Newham's a little bit out on my side of my stomping ground. I'm more like Hackney, Dalston, Islington, that kind of area.
Yeah, so my
E5, yeah, that kind. You're more Newham's a little bit more south, right?
yeah, well, so I was born in Newham General Hospital, but I actually lived in Stratford when I was a younger boy. My mum and dad
Stratford.
moved out.
Stratford's a little bit more me now.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because with the regen stuff in the Olympics, I mean, back then I was born in 1985, showing all my age here. But when we moved, my
Yeah,
parents moved us out in 88, 89. They were living in a part of Stratford that wasn't that good. My dad kept getting his car broken into. There's all this, that, and the other. Not a very great area. I mean, I think it's improved now, and my dad didn't really want me growing up around that area, so I moved to Billericay. But it's always it's like a second home for me. You know, I've got my sister lives in East London, in near the West Ham
yeah,
ground, but my dad lived in Islington, and he supports Arsenal, and I copied him. But anyway, I won't go
yeah,
off
yeah.
on too
Same.
much of a tangent, but we've got something in common there.
Yeah,
Um,
no, good.
we've got a question here from 72 ERY, a serious question. What's Jake's thoughts on UK esports? Low as a centre game. Are we lacking behind other countries or regions by our own means or other factors like Riot, Nuke, UK or C? And what's the goal for him and Ruddy? There's a lot in there. If
Right, so
we'll come on to
that's two
Ruddy.
questions. I can
Yeah,
get on to the first question just initially.
yeah.
I think
Well, I
that's what
was
you're
going
going
to
to
ask
say.
you that anyway. UK League
Yeah,
thoughts.
yeah, yeah. So genuinely, so it's a lot of different factors. I actually got into like quite a lengthy conversation with Veteran the first time I met him about this. UK League is stagnated behind a lot of years because the developmental period of it has been really trifled by ineptitude and complete scamzola merchants. So a lot of the people who actually initially had that money. So when you have initial investment, which you're seeing in like France, right? Like a lot of teams that like have the investment, but from the ground up, they were like generally like pretty by the book and like did things the right way. But like the problem is when money was first introduced into UK scene, people just used it in the worst way. You just had like people like using stipends to like buy houses for themselves and like put players in houses where like they have to eat like stale bread and stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just like so basically when you have that initial burst and like people can correct me or whatever, and I'm sure people like post an interview will like elucidate. I don't claim to be a figure of authority on this, so like, do you know what I mean? And I have a very limited understanding of economics beyond like a basic reading print, which actually ironically puts me ahead of a lot of people in UK esports. But anyway, I digress. Uh, when you have that initial money coming in and then that goes awry and like people are just like using it for personal benefit, when you have like a very self-interested base, that that promotes or prevents rather further investments. You see a lot of like sponsorship like pulling out. Like I know I'm finding it really difficult not to get into specifics because I don't want to shit talk anyone. But yeah, when you have basically people who are scam artists and people who are very self-interested, some of whom are still in the scene but not necessarily protected by the UK ecosystem, because the ecosystem in the UK is like very like it's a positive and a detriment, right? Like, I feel like NLC is very like protected and like it's very mandated. Like Kai is very much he's there at the product manager. There's people in place there. There are checks and balances. Whereas before you had like SQ1, UKL, UKLC, and not to suggest any of those things were run differently, but you had like different governing bodies that have to acquiesce to each other's needs and demands at different times, and that can like when you have multiple spots of infection, it can create like different symbiosis that is created by that. But now it's more centralized, which means that you can actually have a model that is very much like regulated and the checks and balances are put in
Mm,
place, which is similar to how like France is run, similar to how Germany is run, quite literally, because Freaks for You owns Germany, right? But
yes.
in its inception, you have like really bad people involved who are like somewhat not involved now. I feel like Kai, shout out to Kai. I have to give Kai a shout out because he's like ironically, like in charge of a lot of like where my career will be going. But like other than that, I wouldn't like pander to him, even if I didn't think he
Mm.
was doing a good
He
job,
sounds like he
which he
cares a
is.
lot, and
He
and
does, and he's from the scene, and that's really important. He's not just like a corporate shadowy figure.
yeah.
Like I feel like he like reached out to me personally during like my first like stretch of casting before I did LFL or anything. Like, what is your character? Like, made a like very vested interest in like actually understanding like who I was as a person. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Which is like really important. And then like a lot of other people that I've spoken to, like all of the casters and talent, like very interested in like preserving and like making the scene better. But the problem is, like I'm saying, it's an infrastructure thing that has been damaged, which already sets you behind somewhat. NLC suffers as well from disparate nationalistic identities, in the sense of like France can very much galvanize the entire like national mood of
Mm.
like we are French and kind of get that ultra mindset in the same way like
Yeah.
a West Ham football hooligan can be like so ardently in support of their team. Like I look at a Carmine Court fan, don't even talk about like, so this is like something like a lot of people will like want to be like, oh, look at these massive events they can put on in like football stadiums, they can pack it out with 16,000 people. Go and tell a Carmine Court fan that 113 is an Inter, and like just see how many like death threats you get in your Twitter DMs. Like I'm not even joking. Like I love the Carmine Court fans, and I'm an LFL caster, but like they are like a very ultra fan base, like whereby they will criticize you and like bite your arm off before you can even put a finger in the pond of criticism.
Mm.
And like that's a positive and a negative, and like all owners need to do more to like stop that and stem that. But then also at the same time, if you were to like like Jamada did, like a big example of this like was when Jamada was like got criticism for like basically criticizing Carmine Court, and then went like, I love the banter, guys, like, yeah, and then tweeted something in French. He immediately had like 8,000 reactions, like,
Yeah.
oh, you're like, we love you, like, thank you for understanding us. Like, it's just passion, because a
Yeah.
lot of it is just passion, right? Like, but
That's right.
that doesn't exist in NLC because not first of all, orgs are like really shit. Like all of the NLC Div 1 orgs, like I'll come on here to like talk shit. I don't care about this because I actually care about this scene a lot, and I really want us to grow. But like all of you NLC Div 1 orgs, like bar maybe like Veneer is the only example. Shout out to Veneer, actually. You can use that as a headline if you like want to do a write up. Like shout out to Veneer specifically, because they're the only org I've seen actually like prey upon this like nationalism pride or whatever, and like actually builds a fan base. Like because when you have the NLC, the whole way it's set out, like you see the infographic at the beginning, it's like the 8 stars that lead to like the Mount Everest
Yeah.
kind of thing. You see in the graphic or whatever. Like UK don't do enough to like build their identity. We're the UK, man. Like even if you're a London org, like London is the capital of like arrogance in the West. Like, do you know what I mean? Like we're so like braggadocious. Like I grew up with people in London that will like tell you like, oh, let me have a go on your bike, and then never come back with your bike. Like we're just the original like. Where's that energy? Where's that like rebel kind of like devil no care like kind of attitude?
Yeah. Do,
Um,
do you think
sorry,
people are a
yeah.
bit scared? Because listen, I'm an overthinker. I sometimes think, well, in the early days of UK League, I covered the drama a lot. That's because there wasn't much else to cover, and it was a lot
Yeah.
more unprofessional back then. And then I think maybe I don't know. Did I scare a few orgs? I mean, I can't take sole responsibility for this because
No,
there'll be
it's
other
not. It's not
people on
you because
Twitter and stuff.
you're just an arbiter of what happens. You don't actually necessarily. I mean, like obviously, you're precipitating action and reporting it means that there's more of a spotlight shone on it. But like, so there's a thing where like I obviously wasn't a part of the. I mean, I was kind of part of the UK scene. Like I'm aware of like things that have gone on, right? But
Mm.
like, as more professionalism gets attached to it, and like obviously we move into like franchising, and like obviously NLC is now at a point where like orgs don't actually own their spots. It's basically leased out to you by the NLC. So like there's not actually a lot of like there's essentially like an illusion of a superstructure there. If I'm like to get into
Yeah.
like some real like Foucaultian principles or whatnot, um, but yeah, like there's a lot more like people are like so scared. There's a real shift you see from a few years ago where like people are more scared to like do things. One of the major things for me, and I spoke about this on my Twitch channel recently, is like one of the major things for me coming up, and like I'm in a position now where like I can actually produce a lot of stuff, and like I get approached by XL to do stuff, like I get approached by like a lot of other things, but like there were so many of these like little orgs who like operate at like a Div 2 level or like a lower Div 1 level that would be approaching me. And then X7 is guilty of this as well. Like the reason my contract that I never signed, that was never given to me, that they gave to me, that never existed, um, was basically my working relationship with X7 was terminated because I wasn't going to be a good thing to present to their tier 1 brand sponsors or whatever.
Oh
And that's
gosh.
maybe a bit more applicable, but like other orgs I've work with that like are like I've constantly been like, don't be a brand race, try and be a bit more on brand. As much as I love Alex and Officer Naughty, a lot of the things he was saying to me growing like I say growing up, that sounds so weird, but like growing into the role that I have now was
Yeah.
constantly being told like, don't be a brand risk, like work on being a brand risk. But like I'm gonna get into the camera here. Like, guys, like you UK orgs, you don't work with any brands. Like, what brands are you risking? Like, there's no brands that you're working with. I promise you. Like, you're not risking anything. We're at the point of like, if there's no money in what you're doing, for a lot of these like Div 2 teams, Div 3 teams, what the fuck are you risking? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so insane to me. Like,
Do you know what? Before I did this interview, when I was on the drive home, I've done some badminton tonight. When I was on the drive home, I was thinking,
yeah.
your style. I think you're pretty unique and with your content. What would you do if someone like G2 came knocking? Because for me, you've got that comedic style. I think that is pretty aligned with an org like G2. That
Um. Yeah. So this is the maybe even touch into like what we were talking about before, like previously, like in the sense that like yeah, what we do is very much tapping into that. Like people are like, oh, these same people that are like, oh, brand risk this, brand risk that. G2 are the kings of like they created like controversy and like just like weird kind of like pseudo anarchical structure in whatever they do. And it's like worked wonderfully for them. They became like the villain. They're so easily like able to like navigate that kind of villain to hero story
mm,
arc in terms of just like we're willing to talk shit, but we'll talk shit before shit hits the fan. So it's like more of a pride thing. But it's like
yeah.
people don't realize like they're just lazy in terms of like how they navigate PR. Like so, like one of the major things for us as an org right now is that like in Div 3, we're making sure that like if we take shots at like Div 1 teams, we're doing it in broad strokes because otherwise it comes across as like, you know, we're taking punches up and that seems a bit like small fish doing or whatever. But like, and we also don't want to like, you know, be shitting on our opponents too much because then otherwise it can come like, we don't want to be bullies. But like very much we're like trying to supplant ourselves or like cement ourselves as like an org that is like trying to do better than everyone else in terms of like our outreach socially because really it needs to be like expressed and like I can't express this enough like NLC teams do not do enough at all in terms of content or actual branding and what they don't understand is like I don't want to come across as like some kind of like Cassandra like crazy cat lady figure in the scene where like I'm telling like guys like I promise you but like I'm genuinely telling you like I'm not a consultant you don't have to pay me like I don't work for a hedge fund or anything like I promise you but like you will see more returns on this like kind of like crazily volatile market structure that exists within League of Legends and the NLC like if you pump resources into the league will get more viewers and then you will get more money back like I promise you I'm not telling you to do it with no ROI the ROI is there because otherwise like you look at like oh god I hate bringing them up because I don't want to like you know I'm not going to talk too much shit about X7 but X7 will be the main brunt of my criticism but like X7's business model, if you're not aware, essentially, and they could maybe like correct me if I'm wrong. I'll probably get a DM from Higher like clarifying what their business model is. But to be honest with you, I don't care. The business model essentially is buy import Korean player from Korean region that is proven at somewhat level. They've obviously done that with Chasey now. Previously they did it with Haru, who was working in LLA or whatever, but they're obviously previously world champion. These are players that will just crush at ERL level. Then the idea is you bring them to the market and then you sell them off. So I think they sold Vitality, they sold Haru for like I don't want to say the figure. I'm pretty sure I know the figure, but I don't know if it's like
Well, I
publicly
think
documented.
it was quoted. I'm just gonna Google this really quickly because I believe Meg Kay, a good journalist in this space, did an article for Dixerto a little while ago inside the off season how X7 propelled Haru from the NLC to Team Vitality. And in here, I did a tweet that pulled this out. There was a feed.
I like Meg's work by the way, and like I've never spoken to her, like I follow her, but I resent that as like a standpoint of like how to express that, because it's not like we can't sit around and pretend that X7 are like their like main modus operandi is like developing talent. It's not a developing talent thing. Haru's a fucking world champion. Like it's a business perspective. Like they brought a player in and because of the fact that they run at such high operation costs with no content or ways of actually having sponsorships, look at their sponsorships and just, like add up the numbers in your head about how much money they get from that kind of stuff and their partnerships. No, the only way they've managed to like some item. Oh god, it sounds like I'm talking so much shit. I don't care. I'm unfiltered on this podcast, on this show or whatever. Like, if you look at the operation costs and imagine how much they pay their players in terms of their roster, where are they getting money from beyond like personal investment, and where are they getting an actual ROI from, return of investment? They sold Haru and like for what I'd imagine 100k plus,
So
right?
this is
There's
it.
your
Yeah,
money back.
it says the buyout here was somewhere between 100 to 200,000 euros.
So like I don't know how she's expressed that in that article, but I resent that as an idea, and I know it was like a party line that X7 tried to operate under. Like they're about like bringing new talent to the ERL market and selling it off. No, that's just literally what your business model is. Your business model, and they've repeated it. If this thing like this is where so much of like the market volatility comes from. If X7 don't do well this split, they're not going to be able to sell Chasey most likely, and then they don't have like a ROI on their kind of investment of
It's
like
a
their
risk,
operation
isn't it?
costs,
But
and then it taps into their actual funding. Like
But I will say though, I've seen other orgs doing pretty well with this kind of thing. Like for me, if it is helping making some UK orgs sustainable, I don't mind it too much. I think
it's not
Endpoint.
sustainable. It's not
Do you think
sustainable.
it's not
It's
sustainable
no,
because
of
you've
course
always
it's
got
not
to change your
sustainable.
players? Or
Because you're importing a player, and then when you import a player, they could do well, but you could also get a scenario
it's a
whereby
risk?
a
Yeah.
player comes in, it's not a culture fit,
Mm.
it goes crashing and burning, they hate it, they want to leave at the end of the split and go back to Korea, and then what are you meant to do? Like like obviously you'll probably get a return of investment in terms of like your buyout clause because they'll have contract buyout clauses. I know like Neas is really good with this. He's the coach or whatever. He's the main guy that like does all their scouting for that kind of stuff. They're always going to make like a somewhat of return, but like it's just a difference between do you get the buyout, do you get like the big buyout from like LEC or whatever. They obviously hit the jackpot, but you're rolling the dice every time you do it. Like it's not sustainable at all. And
But
like
have they definitely done that? As I mean, I might be sounding naive here. Have they definitely done that as their goal? I mean, they won't want to lose their best talent, but when you get offers coming in like that, then yeah, are orgs really setting out to bring talent in and sell on? I know we had Lucent the other
well, what else
week,
are they
didn't
doing?
have a
What else are they?
contract.
What else? Where else are they getting money from? There's no money in sheer viewership from NLC. The only money you're getting from NLC is if you put out content, you put out merch. I know a lot of orgs get into like that whole NFT metaverse bullshit. Like, I'm allowed to swear, right?
Yeah, do you know what? I want to cover NFTs a little bit because for the first time in my life, I spoke to someone today. It was my 5-year-old
Yeah,
sports day, and I was talking to one of the dads there, and he started talking to me about NFTs and buying Star
yeah.
Wars NFTs and all this stuff. I was
Well,
like,
you're
"This
gonna
is
hate.
amazing! I've never spoke to a real life person in real life outside of
Well,
esports and gaming about this
it
stuff."
sounds like you had a lovely conversation, so you're going to hate what I say next. But fuck you if you're involved in crypto or NFTs and you have an esports organization in the UK. Like all of you are like it's like so like pseudo scummy, the kind of stuff. The idea that like you're like the sustainability of your business is based upon something that is volatile as crypto or NFTs or whatever. Like Jesus Christ, man. Like, I don't know. I won't name name. There's an organization that exists in the NLC ecosystem right now that basically has like a membership token you
I
can
know who
buy.
you're talking
It's
about.
limited
Yeah,
amount of keys, and you
yeah,
can buy them. They are 435 euros each, by the way.
yes.
They're actually less because they're zero point 0.1 Ethereum each, which is like obviously Ethereum's crashed. So they're like 90 more, but you could buy them. They're marketed at 435.
Mm,
This organization has 600 followers on Twitter. Um, get a fucking grip, man. Like, what are you doing? Like, you don't have a fan base to be demanding this amount of money in response. Like, it's a joke. It's an absolutely joke. Like in terms of some of the things that these like people are getting into, and like they're doing stuff like I see a lot of like I know X7 was initially interested in it, but like stuff like metaverse stuff. Like we're like well and truly heading in the direction of like teams offering you like jerseys but that you can like wear in the metaverse but don't actually have like a physical context to them,
mm,
and like just all of these things. Like I wouldn't mind it if you're doing so. Like for me, and like from our business perspective, I know Harry's like very much in the same mind. I don't think Harry's as anti-crypto as I am. I know he's like pretty anti-NFT, but like I can see like the utility in some of it and like art-wise. But like I wouldn't mind it if any of you orgs were doing anything content-wise or anything that actually produces any sort of tangible effort. But no, you're just all like people that have made money from the lottery that is crypto or NFTs, and then you've bankrolled your projects and you're not actually putting any like legitimate creative effort whatsoever into your things. So this is the main problem. Whereas before you had a lot of orgs that were bankrolled by like government institutions or whatnot, and then they put money in and they just spaff it up the fucking wall. Now you just have like people with like external investment that have made it from what is essentially a volatile market and are now just going to continue to spaff out them while the scene stagnates and doesn't move in any sort of direction. Can we actually make like tangible efforts to improve the scene? Because that's actually how you grow something. That's
mm.
actually how we get the scene to a point where like we have the same amount of viewers as Prime League. Prime League Div 2 gets 15k viewers. NLC's on 5. Like NLC was on 3 last year. Like, and that's no fault. Like I don't want to feel like I'm shitting down Kai's throat when I say that, because Kai's doing a great job. Like
Mm.
NLC peaked at 6k like first couple weeks. Like that's incredible growth. But like orgs, you are all so shit, man. Like, do something. Like, we are literally dying flatline. Like, the heartbeat of the scene is just dying on the floor. And you all care about just making these, like, shitty little NFT tokens. And, like, what board ape can I wear at, like, the viewing party for our Division 2 game? Like, shut up, man. Like, go and make a video. Go and get your iPhone. Stop being so fucking lazy. Like, it's so disgusting. Like, you all disgust me with how little effort you put in. Like, this is the thing with, like, I posted the production costs of, like, our video we made, our announcement video, which is, like, nothing. Like, it's nothing impressive. It cost me, like, 50 quid to make. Like, 30 of that I gave to Ducky Visual. Shout out to him at Ducky Visual on Twitter. He's the guy who edited our video. Like, 20 of that was, like, booking out a studio. I recorded and wrote that all in a day. Like, it's all, like, you know, like, what? And, like, you're telling me that cost me 50, and some of these orgs have, like, run at 100k operations costs and, like, are playing players, like, multiple thousands of dollars, and you can't just, like, you don't even, like, have to be, like, I know a lot of you are, like, completely, like, about as dried up creatively as, like, a nun's purse, but, like, there's no excuse to me that you can't just go to someone. There are so many good voices. I can shout at so many people. Middlecott, J-Real, like, loads and loads of different people that exist in the ecosystem of the UK that, like, you could just give a little bit of money and they would come up with a grand idea for you that would just require you to just, you know, enact that vision or whatever, and they would just do it for you.
I
Like, they
tend
would
to
just do your
find
job
that
for you.
the UK orgs, they focus a lot on their roster announcements. I want more of that quality throughout the season from them. The
Yeah.
roster announcements look nice and flashy. But yeah, what you're saying is, you know, more banter, more fun, more regional based, you know, rivalry. UK versus, you know, wherever
But
else,
it's on
Denmark
orgs.
and
It's on orgs 100%, and I don't want to tap into this too much. So, like, NLC, there are two really big things, and I want to bring perspective to this because, like, I don't want to act like I'm not like a fellatio enthusiast of the NLC, because the NLC has its own problems that we'll get onto at some point in terms of, like, I don't agree with a few things they do. So, you know, I'm not like a shadow. People don't need to worry. Like, just because I've, like, had some good opportunities come my way, I'm not going to turn into, like, shadow militia for the man or whatever. You know, I'm a man of the people. I will always continue to fight for, like, esports because I care about UK esports, like, a lot.
yeah,
Like, I care about the scene. I want it to do well. And, like, that's for
same.
self-indulgent reasons as well. I want my org to be able to thrive in a
Mm.
good. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like when people say, "Oh, I want to have a kid and, like, raise them in a world that is just," and, like, I don't want to bring a child in this world. Like, that's very much me. Like, Ruddy is my baby. I want it to be brought up in an ecosystem not filled with skullduggery and thievery, that which has, like, very much been rampant for the last, like, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
But, like, two things the NLC has done really well this split, and, like, it's underrated things that I feel like people haven't even noticed unless you've, like, listening to, like, what I've had to say. This if you ever see the social leaderboard thing they do where they tally
Yeah.
up
I like
points
that.
and they accrue, this is the best. And think about what that is. People won't actually realize, if you actually read into the PR decisions behind that, that is a quantitative way to evaluate how shit social media managers are at their job in NLC. Because if you're at the bottom of that, you're thinking, wow, I'm exposed for being really shit
Mm.
and stealing a paycheck. If I'm at the top of that, alls can actually, like, you know, find out, like, you know, it's a thing of that, whatever.
The
Um,
competition, sorry, go on.
no, carry on. You
I
can
was
go.
going to say the
I
competition thing. I like that, and it encourages more social posts and so on. I know this is different. I was at Butlins the other week with some old school friends for this '90s weekend, and they did this thing called Bingo Bango. Don't know if you heard of that. It's like silly bingo, right, with silly prizes. And they say at the end, when you've got your prize, bring it out on the night out and get people to
mm,
take pictures of it and all put the hashtag in. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, they're getting free social media out of this.
yeah.
You know, and let's do more of that in League of Legends. Yeah, I like this thing you've mentioned that they do, where Archeron reads out the top three
No, it's
each
good.
split
What I will say beyond that
broadcast.
is that I don't want to sound too horrible, but, like, you know, there are obviously orgs that are at the top of that, but everything that, like, bro, every single thing I've seen be submitted for that social clash thing has been shit.
But they
But
won't
it's just a,
put they won't put really
but it's
harsh
just a,
things on there, will they?
no, but it's like, no, but in sense of, like, it's not, it doesn't have any creativity attached to it. It's just, like, very, like, mundane, like,
Memes.
image flip generated memes. Whereas, like, but, like, at least it's better than something. Do you know what I mean? It's the thing, right? We have to, like, be, like, multifaceted in our criticism, right? In the sense of, like, shout out to the orgs that are doing it, but, like, all it really does is highlight how really shit the orgs that aren't doing it. Because if you're not willing to put a little bit of effort to, like, make a fucking meme in paint, then, like, what is wrong with you? Like, do you care? Like, what's going on? Like, are you okay? Like, Do we need to help you? Like, is there anything we can do? Can I help you? Like, I'll help you. Like, I'll talk to someone. Like, we can have a nice little 20-minute conversations about how you're like tunneling and spearheading your business into the ground. Like, but yeah, beyond that, the other good thing is the fan on the street segment, which I obviously did for Excel. Like, shout out to me, I absolutely smashed it. Like, I'm the savior of the UK scene. Like, I get it.
That
like,
rap was brilliant, and that really
yeah.
got my attention. And when I saw you do the Ruddy announcement, I was like, well, you'd be great to get on as an interviewee, because that rap, I want more of that stuff.
Why is no one doing it? Like, this is the thing. I could have been doing this 2 years ago, but I was getting gatekept by like random orcs that just weren't paying me money and were scamming me, and like just like running me around in circles in terms of like, oh, you're a brand risk, oh, we can't do this, oh, it's too much of a risk, yada yada yada. Excel come through. I basically got that idea because I saw the Veneer one. Shout out to Veneer again, the only good organ NLC. Shout out to you guys. Beyond Excel obviously, because they do good stuff through me. Yeah. Need to do more though. But shout out to Veneer because they made their video and it was very much like portrayed. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like a guy drinking from like a horn or whatever, and he like very much portraying this like rampant like Viking berserker kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I was like, good, this is an org, and like they're actually one of the only orgs that can actually like, you know, when you see teams that get like, I should turn my light off. There's too much brightness in my room. That's a little bit better. They're one of the only orgs that can actually get like a chain of like Veneer fans like posting their copy pastas. You'll get like 10 of them going at once. There's no other org that can do that. Like XL can't do that. X7 can't do that. Like these orgs with like so much financial backing, so much following, they don't have a fan base. Veneer does. Like shout out to Veneer. You guys really are a shining light. Like I want to preface it. It's still shit. Like you guys are still like in the mud. But like you are very much like the crabs at the top of the bucket. Like please keep fighting, and like you are a shining light in the NLC. Like keep on doing you guys. But yeah, their video was great. Their video was great in the sense of it portrayed that national identity.
Yes.
I got a glimpse of what they were doing. I actually was heavily inspired from my video I did for Excel because of that. Because I was like, in contrast to the Norwegian identity, how do I portray UK? And I was like, okay, cool, got the idea. I'll interrupt them doing the interview. I wrote it all out in one go. I wrote my bars and whatnot. I was just like, yeah, I want to tap into that whole like role safe kind of big Shaq kind of identity that a lot of people internationally foresee us as, and then put my own kind of twist on it. And then that's basically what I did. Yeah, that's what I did from that point onwards. That's how I did my idea. And like, you know, I literally was saying to people, I said to Kai, like before I did that, like, no one will do a better job than me. Like there will be like I challenge any NLC org. And like they've done it so far. Like Astralis came back with one that was like a literal like fan in the street or whatever. They did that. And I was just laughing because I was just like I'm an arrogant person, and like you're just proving to me that like it's untouchable, that you can't do it. Like, there's just no creative juices whatsoever flowing for any of these sort of like ideas that they're putting through. And like Singularity did one the other day. Singularity, the video you did for the fan on the street is the most mundane, lapsidaisical kind of syphilitic waste of like airtime I've ever seen in my life. It is the biggest waste of like the idea that any sort of resources were dedicated to that is just a joke to me, that any sort of thought. It's just like, it's the lapse of thought. It's the absence of any sort of idea or creativity that went into that project. Yeah, so yeah, essentially, in summation, TLDR, in conclusion, NLC orgs, please get a grip because, you know, you are killing this region.
DonJake, you've given me, I don't think I've ever spoken to someone who's given me so many headlines in the space of 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever.
I don't mind. I want all the smoke. Like, and the thing is, like, I'm very much setting myself up as a target, right? Because I'm giving a lot of shit to people. It means that very much like what we're doing with Ruddy has to be perfect. Like, I know that like a lot of people, if we don't promote, for example, by some miracle, like, I say miracle, like it can happen, right? We're in a very hard group. There are other good teams, like the bottom tier 2 teams. You know, things can go wrong and we don't promote. Like a lot of people will be looking at me like, oh, you're a lot of talk, but then like things didn't go well. But like, try and actually like talk to me and like tell me anything I'm saying is wrong. Like I'm completely right. Like, do you know what I mean? Like in terms of like, and I will continue to falsify that in whatever I do in terms of the content I put out, be it through Excel, be it through Ruddy. I want to be someone that, even though I exist in the ecosystem, even though like, you know, I'm going to be at some point probably on the NLC broadcast, I continue to be on the LFO. I continue to like do things throughout the ecosystem. I don't want people to think that like I'm going to stop like throwing rocks at other people because like, no, because it's not. Before it was just an impassioned thing. Now you guys are directly correlated to my business. And I will not allow, you know, it's like if you're on a high street and you've got a nice new shop on a high street or whatever, and the 2 shops to the right and left of you are just like, they just stink, and like, you know, the fucking front of the shop is in MS Paint, and like, you know, no one, they've had 4 customers in the last like calendar year. Like, no, guys, you guys all need to look better so that my business looks better by comparison as well. So I will directly be coming at all of you and making sure that you're all doing your job better, because this kind of like laziness cannot be allowed to continue. There needs to be more of a grassroots movement from a lot of people that are involved in positions that I am, because I'm lucky to be in a position now where I actually have a little bit of weight in the scene and whatnot. Like, mediocrity cannot be allowed to prosper, because it's killed this region for so long. And I, DonJake, herald of change, I'm not going to set myself up as like, I'm going to just do as much as I can, obviously, to move things in a good direction. But like, yeah, I'm not like the sole savior. I can't like cure the region. I'm just like, guys, orgs, like, please, like, guys, like, please, like, it's our region, like, it's your business. Like, the problem that exists now is you've got so many teams that are like getting involved for 4 years, and they realize, oh, we just lost a load of money and it was a waste of time. Yeah, like, moron, because you didn't put any effort into like actually branding yourself and like making any money, because there's no prize money. The NLC stipend should be used to cover your roster. Beyond that, any sort of money you generate or income generation should come from external brand sponsorships, investment, and like actually generating money for yourself. Like, get into merch, do interesting stuff. Like, there's so many good ideas, man.
DonJake.
Like, London.
Yeah, go
sorry,
on.
I'm talking for so long.
I was going to say, I'm
long,
conscious of time, and
yeah,
people in the chat, I haven't been able to get onto many other questions because I do want to talk about Ruddy before I go on. What I was going to say was, with your rap, we've spoken about the XL rap and what you've done. I was going to prepare something for this.
oh, really?
For this call, I was going to produce a little
Great.
rhyme or whatever, but all I got was I didn't finish it. I got, his name is DonJake. His content is really great. That's all. That's as far as I got.
That's great. Well, you know, it's all about effort. And
Exactly.
ironically, Dom, you know, the general the irony in this praxis here is that essentially you've already put more effort in than every NLC org. So congratulations, you're leaps and bounds above all of the inadequacies that exist within our region. So congratulations.
Amazing. I want to talk about Ruddy before I go into your ethos and all this stuff. I mean, you have spoken about Ruddy and your plans and so on a little bit.
Yeah.
What will happen if you do cast in the NLC, or you've done a bit of work for Excel and so on? What happens if Ruddy do get to Division 1 and you're doing a bit of work for Excel and you're casting, and people start saying all conflicts of interest? What will happen at that point? Is that something you've thought about?
Well, essentially, I think that would probably come up to, well, whatever behind the scenes decisions need to be made.
Cross that bridge when you come
if
to it.
If it ended up being a case that like they need to like not have the cast ready games, then I don't mind. But like, I'm a professional, obviously I'd want my team to win. But, like, I feel very much in the same way that like Goldborg had like an unofficial professional relationship with Astralis, whereby he was like very much seen as like the spokesperson or whatever. And like more so now, I'm being more and more seen as like someone who like talks for XL and NLC.
It happens.
I'd assume
doesn't
that it could be a similar. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like it's fine. Like, bro, like. Actually, no, I shouldn't mention that. Sorry. I was about to go on a tangent. I've got to be so careful with what I say. Even though, like, it might seem like I'm talking a lot of shit, but there's still even more, like, what I can't say. But, like,
you've got Trouble, haven't you, in the LEC? Trouble does work with SK as well.
Yeah, obviously.
Right?
Yeah, exactly as well. So, I don't think there'd be any problems. If there was, we'd cross that bridge when we come to it. But,
Although I guess people could say that Trouble is different because she does content creation, whereas you're an owner, right? Or a co-owner of the org.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about.
We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it.
But I know we're coming towards the end here, but we've shoved everything in towards the end. We haven't. Are we
on a tight schedule? I just to clarify, if it's a case that you need to go, then fair enough. I can go as long as possible.
Well, we need to maybe if Alex, the producer, and shout out to Alex from Confetti in Nottingham. Maybe if Alex can tell us how long he's got, because he might need to dash off, or just type to us, Alex, and let us know. But I'd love to know about Ruddy, DonJake, your ethos. We haven't even spoken about the roster here. Like I say, Rifty, you've got in the top lane, and I've seen Rifty in the chat. Thanks for tuning in, Rifty.
Shout out to Ashley, my goat.
A real veteran. And Rifty did say, when I asked him on Twitter, why you joined, and he said it's a simple reason. Jake has done some interesting things within the scene, wants to make good content, and is pretty dedicated to it. So I kind of just want to see where it goes. He honestly might be able to bring more eyes to the UK scene. And and he's talking about, it's stale, clean content elsewhere in the scene. right? And wanting
That
to
really
do
makes me happy because I think anyone that's familiar with Rifty knows how much like a cynical old man he is in terms of like
stuff.
he's really been through the bench press shitter of the UK scene, like washed in and out of the intestinal tracks of whatever this scene has to offer. So for him to say that, I think massively for me, like for him to even take the chance on us to come and play for Div 3. This guy was at EU Masters last split. Do you know what I mean? Like it really like I think whilst I do have a good talent in terms of like convincing people to like join me in my passion and my vision,
Mm, that's great.
massive testament to like from him. Like I couldn't be happy with the fact that he's attached to this. He had such like a senior role to our team and like legitimacy in terms of like all the other players look up to him so much in terms of like him being that voice on the team. He's not the most vocal of people, but like when it comes to it, like everyone does listen to him,
Yeah,
and it's
definitely.
an absolute joy to have him around. Obviously met up with him as well at the Ruddy shoot. The team in general, like, even beyond him, we've got Tent in jungle at the moment. He's not our like he's not signed up to be a long. We've got like an interesting relationship with him whereby he's not signed up long term
Right.
necessarily. That could be subject to change, but for the very moment at least, he is our jungler. He's obviously played NLC previously, and then beyond that, Regan obviously UKLC with Resolve and M&M previously. Harry was Harry's support, who's also the owner as well.
And then
There's a
yeah,
lot of experience on the roster, and there's some good UK faces like
you've got Ketsuo as well in mid, and then
yeah,
Calais. Have
Ketso,
I
who is like
pronounced
a
that right?
very
Cal.
underutilized talent in UK mids. Like obviously was Grandmaster, for quite a while now. Only
Yeah.
really got to play UKL split with X7, which was kind of mired by some internal conflicts, from what I understand. Um, but yeah, having his opportunity, obviously played Div 3 last split, played a little bit of Div 2, but he's a good player, and I feel like he, in the right environment, will be nurtured into like a very good player as well. Like he's
Mm.
got a lot of like growth to do. Like any player that's like Grandmaster and above in the UK, like really needs to be like in a good environment whereby the coaching staff are there to
Yeah.
help them improve.
And you've started off pretty well. Is it 3 wins, 1 loss so far? Am I
We're
right?
3-1s, but that's deceptive because our first win against Lions Creed was essentially they didn't submit a roster in time, so we took the 2-0 automatically, and then we had to play against X7, and we took an unfortunate draw against them because we had to play with Harry in AD carry, who to describe Harry as a player, he basically doesn't have the ability to click backwards; he only clicks forwards. Um,
He's going to hit by
and
towers, isn't he? Eventually, and get died to the
No, yeah,
towers.
no. Eventually, that is kind of the crux of his undoing. It was the crux of our undoing in the series. Um, yeah, so we unfortunately did go 1-for-1, but beyond that, it's fine. We should have taken 2-0, but we had a sub. We've got a few more matches to go. Obviously, we're kind of in a scenario whereby we're in like a Manchester Liverpool race in our league because for some reason. I need to have a word with NRC. We should have complained about it more when the groups were announced, but like the two best teams in the league, if you were to just assess it by seeding, anyone who has a brain are both in the same league. So we're battling for first place with them and are in a position whereby, like, in drawing against X7, we basically drew against Burnley, and now we've dropped 2 points, and we'd have to like make it up when we play against them. So when we play against them, it's going to be like the real title match. But we're just hoping now that we don't drop any more games because we look shaky sometimes. We look very shaky against X7. There's a lot of like different voices on the team, like.
Mm.
But like generally speaking, I can confidently say like on our day, there's no team that drafts better than us. I can at least say that. But the version of Ruddy that you get on the day is very different.
Who's your shot caller? Is it Rifty?
Rifty doesn't really talk much in game actually.
Okay.
Rifty talks when he has to because he knows what he's doing. But Rifty very much just leave him to his
He's
own
up in the
devices and do
island,
his thing.
right? That's his role.
He's up in the island. Like this guy, like is just absolutely mental. I saw a lot of people. I want to say this. I saw a lot of people like say like, oh, like Patoska's the best top in the league because obviously Verdant's got Patoska. Like, if you think that okay, so like what like, Patoska could obviously do well when they play against each other. I don't want to suggest that they'll go toe to toe. I don't think it'll be a one-sided affair. But like for people to underrate Rifty in the way that he does, this guy, like to people understand, like this guy had like multiple accounts and like 1200 LP while he was just like for funning in Demise. This guy had like 4 wards on his team in Demise and UKLC. It was like completely 1v9 outside of a couple games. Like literally was at U Masters last split. Like this guy is like a complete like absolute machine. Like and like Patoska is like a lower down NLC top laner who like won Telia Masters. Like there's 2 different levels there. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? Rifty's had LEZ offers in the past. Like this guy has been around since the dawn of time as like one of the preeminent like in that kind of Kerberos like
Mm.
cries like that kind of ilk of talent. Like this guy's a real like piece of work in terms of what he can do in the top side. Like one of our preeminent like UK top lane goats. And like, the only reason he's never like made up there is because like he just doesn't want to. Like it's
I
one of those
remember
things. He's just
that. Yeah, and if Rifty, if you are in if you're still in this chat, I remember talking to Rifty and Insomnia a while ago and talking about League of Legends. I think we did a what was it now? Weatherspoons and Chill interview. I
I've
did.
seen that video.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
with
with Rifty
Toaster.
and
It's you,
Toaster,
Toaster.
and
You're in a Weatherspoons, and there's a load of construction work in the
yeah.
background. I've done my research.
And I think Rifty said, well, thanks for watching, first of all, but I think he said
Yeah,
something like, well, you're talking to me, Dom, as if I'm someone who enjoys the game. I don't enjoy the game. I'm thinking, but the amount of time you've put into the game, there must be some element of it you enjoy.
yeah. Well, the thing is with him, this is some people. I think for him, and I don't want to speak for him because he can obviously clarify anything
Yeah,
I'm saying about him. But I feel like we're decent mates now, and I feel like I can kind of get quite in tune with his thought process. He just doesn't really like. He wants more from life in terms of just
mm,
he doesn't necessarily have any aspirations that far exude what you'd be able to achieve in League of Legends. But it's more like there's more to life than League for him.
mm,
He doesn't ascribe to the whole like waste away and just like divulge all your mental effort into it. He's just naturally very good, and when it comes to doing the job, he'll do it. And like I don't want anyone to take away that he has like motivation concerns around Ruddy.
yeah,
This guy's he's a job doer. Like he'll do the job, but like when it comes to outside of it, like this guy's not your you know he's not his life isn't lost if we don't promote. Do you know what I mean? And
mm,
there's a security in that, and I really appreciate that kind of because for me this isn't the be all or end all for me as well. Like if things don't go well, like if I don't end up taking off in strides and getting a livable income from esports in the next year, then I'm not like this is not my. I want to make films, and like, I know I can make films no matter what. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't take much from me. Like I
mm,
can just do it. Like the veracity at which I do it will depend on a lot of external factors. But yeah, I feel like we're kindred spirits in that sense. But yeah,
mm.
um, very true.
We-
Yeah, I'm glad I could have highlight a little bit more about our roster.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's good to talk about it. We've got a few minutes left. Our producer has to go at 10:30, so I'll go to the wire.
Yeah,
We've got a question here from Whelm. Yo, Don, when are you dropping Don Bears? I don't know what that is.
Don what?
Don
God.
Bears. Bears.
No idea what
No?
he means. Next question.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what that is about. I assumed it was some kind of in joke or something like that.
No.
We've spoken about so we've spoken about Ruddy. What are your thoughts on the structure, DonJake? Because there was a lot of criticism, and I covered this a few months ago when they
When you
shut
say the
down.
structure, what do you mean?
So, like the structure we have in the NLC now, where you have the 5 divisions and there's no prize pool in Div 2 and below, and there was
It
controversy.
makes access into the general league a lot easier. I feel like just from our perspective, like we got in pretty easily.
Mm,
But I also can't compare that to previously because we didn't get in when it was like UKL or whatever, right?
yeah.
I think generally speaking, people complain about bureaucracy, but bureaucracy has always been a thing. Even with UKL, bureaucracy was a major thing. Look back at all the nerd rage stuff, for example, that was a major thing. I think the one major criticism for me, from the NLC perspective, everything being monopolized and centralized, is that the talent pipeline is very minute now and very access doesn't exist. I
Mm,
think NLC is doing a really bad job in terms of nurturing some of the talent that exists. Whereby before, you had UKL, you knew that you could get onto UKL. And if you did a really good job on there, you'd probably get the call up at some point to do UKLC. And then from UKLC, eventually, if you really stood out, you'd go and do NLC. That's what Nymera did. Like Nymera was on UKL. People don't like. I feel like people obviously do know this, but like Nymera was on UKL. Then he filled in for a UKLC day, I'm pretty sure, because Jamana was ill. They really liked him on there, so they had him back. And similar thing, I'm pretty sure Jamana was maybe ill again, or someone else was ill for NLC. He came in and like filled for that and just smashed it. And obviously on the side, he has all his LGL stuff, which I think obviously contributed more to like his
mm,
general selection when you factor in like LEC stuff. But like that doesn't exist now, like in terms of a talent pipeline. Um, so like generally speaking, if you wanted to make into your scene, whereas previously you'd have like SQ1, which I know Kai ironically was involved in heavily. You'd have like a load of casters. There's like 30 people on the books that are like doing stuff in terms of talent pipeline. Me breaking into the scene in terms of casting comes like very lucky. And I've pushed to the front of the queue in comparison to a lot of other people who are like technically better than me in terms of like technical aspects. I think I offer like a lot in terms of like, just like broadcast persona and personality and like vocabulary and just like general like hype moments. But like you want to get into like the actual technical specifics of like casting and like technicality. Like Middlecott, for example, is a lot better than me, like on the technical aspects of casting. Like he could like VOD review with me and I would learn so much. But like I've tipped to the front of the queue somewhat in comparison to him just for pure luck. And like a lot of that like I feel bad for, do you know what I mean? But like at the end of the day, you just gotta keep going, you know?
Yeah.
got the opportunities I've got to run with them. But the problem is now with a lot of how NLC works, I don't know. I've talked shit about a lot of like orgs, so it feel like remiss if I was to like not talk a little bit shit on Kai as well. Like a lot of the way that they run things over there in terms of like, I hope he's not going to get angry at me, but like in terms of things the way there with the way they have to like, you know, you got a lot of people like on staff that like have to fulfill hours on the contract or whatever, like, and like you have people that like, it means that like spaces aren't necessarily being allotted, and I feel like generally speaking, there's a broadcast ethos that means they wanted to move in more of a direction of like portraying European talent, because obviously a lot of the broadcast talent are English or whatever. So I can understand from their perspective they're bringing people on board and like trying to groom talent that exists outside of that superstructure, which makes a lot of sense for me, because it's like fair enough, but like that shouldn't come at. It's one of those things, right? We're getting into like very complex. It's kind of like God, what is the employment strategy that I'm thinking of? Affirmative action. It's like affirmative action in NLC, which is like you don't even want to get into like the specific politics of that, because it's like who the fuck wants to talk about that? Let's keep it light. Like, but you know what I mean? It's one of those things where like there are people ready to like make the jump up and like that should be getting time on NLC too, but aren't, because there's more of a trying to preserve that kind of like creating more of a European ethos. But like everyone should have a place at the table, and I don't think necessarily just because there are a lot of like English casters on NLC, more English casters shouldn't be, and Kai's just said in the chat, to be honest, that pipeline's been changed for next year. Fair
Right.
enough.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
you have to understand, I'm being transparent in everything I'm saying in terms of my criticism. Just because I
Yeah.
love you, Kai, it doesn't mean I can't criticize you a little bit as well. But I think it's a fair thing to say that like a few people that are like trying to make it through. So like this is the point where I shout out my boys. Like middle court is ready for ERL. Like if I wasn't doing if I wasn't doing English LFL, middle court 100% should be doing it. J-Real as well as a host, more so than a caster. I think he should be doing more host. That guy as well is ready for NLC. Like obviously, like Archrom's there, and Archrom is a god. Like I'm so
He's
looking forward
great.
to like potentially having the chance working with him in the future. But like you have people that like should be like pushing through, and like it's just a bit difficult because that pipeline isn't there
Yeah.
in the same way that it was before. But
And
like obviously they're doing things to change that, right? Like
we've got 2 minutes left, so I'm just going to throw in another name. Greyheart, I think, is ready. I really like Greyheart, and also Doctor has done a few bits as well. The other thing, I've got two questions. Hyper2's asked this one: has Ruddy got any ideas on potential content creators getting in the mix? And someone else asked earlier, what do you think about player branding and stuff like that? You've got 1 minute,
no,
DonJake, for these two questions.
question. Cool. So player branding, players are really bad at this kind of stuff. Vangsted is really good at it. NLC Div 2. I don't know if you've ever seen him. He does like really funny interviews where like he actually has like personality come out. Players don't really understand this is a problem even at LEC, that they don't understand that playing career isn't forever. You could be gone in one split, and you need to actually create like a branding and economy beyond that. So like actually making an impact, like Zanzara has. Like Zanzara will get ERL jobs for the next 3 years because he did funny LEC interviews, like purely just based off of that. Obviously he's good as well. I'm not talking shit about him, but Ruddy content creators. I'm not at a point where I want to just like pull resources into like getting streamers, because what's the point? Like unless we're like actually getting people that embody the ethos. Hyper's asking that because he wants to come and stream for us. That might be something that comes and gets announced. But generally speaking, I've got a minute left. I just want to say, X7. Please do more content. This streamer you've got, the Comfy Ego person that does these like post game interviews with stuff, is it's okay, but it's like rather boring. And the fact that you have so many players and these personalities, like Kasing is maybe one of the most interesting players to ever come out of the UK. You had a world champion on your team and nothing to show for it. Like, hang your heads in shame, guys. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, Jesus Christ. Like, you had a world champion and there's no video with him. There's no like YouTube content. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you drop the bag, boys. The bag has been fumbled. Like, even Jaeger is a funny motherfucker. Like Tempt as well. Like, Nata's a bit more withdrawn. I met all of them, by the way. They're all very nice guys.
The interview we did with them
Jesus Christ, guys.
was great.
Sorry, my mum's coming in.
At their boot camp.
Hi, Mum. Do you want to come say hello to the stream? I'm doing an interview with Esports.
We've got to go.
Right
it's 10:30. Alex is going to...
No, I've got to go. Quickly say hello.
Hello, DonJake's mum.
Say hello.
Everyone.
Hi, how are you?
Get a little bit more. Hello.
This has been a great. It's been a great interview. DonJake's given me a lot of headlines.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you so much for the interview, Dom. I hope that I've allowed to, introduce people to my general character that might not have been aware of me otherwise. But you've been a lovely interview, and thank you so much for talking.
Thank you. And if anyone in the chat wants more of this, DonJake, I'd love to interview you again. I think this has
Yeah,
got podcast potential, to be honest. Tell us in the chat if you want more of this stuff. Or DonJake, do your own podcast or whatever. I think you've said a
let us
lot of
know.
interesting things. And yes, so on that note, thanks very much. I'm going to have to whittle through. I don't know when I'm going to get onto it because I'm out and about this week, but I want to turn some of this into, you know,
Yeah.
call to action from you. I'll do an article on a
Yeah, no,
call
no.
to action on UK orgs.
In conclusion, NLC doing better. Shout out to you. Shout out to Kai. You're doing a wonderful job, mate. Keeping the lifeblood of this, dilapidated corpse that is the ecosystem. Fuck every org in NLC Div 1 in terms of your content outreach. You're all so piss poor in terms of what you're doing in that regard. Apart from like one or two exceptions, like I can't really say Excel because the major content outreach they had in LC was due to me. So that's like patting myself on the back. X7, sort it out, you mugs. Like, what's going on? Also, get content creators and like actually reward them for the time they invest. I.e., me. Have better working relationships with people you have involved. Stop absorbing different orgs and getting too many cooks in a kitchen when you can't even handle the basics of actual branding. You've got so many people, and like I'm sure some of you guys can just sit with a typewriter in a room and work it out. Invest in your league, and the league will invest in you. Fuck crypto, fuck NFTs, and shout out to Ruddy Esports. Come and support us. We're playing soon.
Great stuff. Thanks, DonJake. And you said Veneer were an exception, right?
Yeah, I
Was
like
that?
Veneer.
Yeah.
Veneer, but they need to do more. Like even Veneer, like, I'll shout them out, but it's like do more. You know, like
Okay. Right. We're going to let Alex, our great producer, get some
sorry,
sleep
producer.
and,
Thank
and
you,
head
Alex.
off. DonJake, thanks. I really appreciate it. Please, everyone, thanks for watching this Esports News UK stream. I will try and do more weekly interviews. Like I say, go and follow DonJake and Ruddy Esports on Twitter.
Yeah, it's at not DonJake on Twitter, at Ruddy Corp. I'll leave 2 links in the chat.
Yeah.
I'm actually taking the onus upon myself. Not even ask for permission. You can see the kind
No,
of
do it.
really,
Yeah, do it. Do it.
well,
Hopefully the Nightbot doesn't stop it. Oh, the Nightbot might stop it actually.
Oh,
But
he's not. He's
you're
not. He's
in
let me
the
through.
if people go on the pinned tweet on the Esports News UK Twitter, you'll see the handles are in there. Right,
Oh, Don,
drop
they've
them a
let me.
follow.
They've let me right through, mate. So
Good. Okay. Okay.
wonderful
Right.
stuff.
Thanks everyone. We'll end abruptly to let Alex go, and I'll see you all next time.
Peace, peace.